Hello and welcome to the most hated show in the black corner of the internet. I'm your host, the whiteologist, Mr. Blows Your Minds, coming with Black MINDZ News. Today's date, July the 17th, 2019. And what do I got on the menu for today? Well, you know that reparations, and we're coming on the 400-year anniversary next month. You know, people are talking about reparations. So I thought it would be incumbent as me, as one of your news outlet source, to give you something about when slave owners got reparations. Let me say that again. When slave owners got reparations. That's right. Some people might be shocked that you just heard that. What? They paid the slave owners? What about our share? Well, there was a story that came out in the New York Times of an article that I had read, and what I'm going to do is disseminate it for you and tell you what it said. And again, if you want to do any further research, that's incumbent on yourself. Again, so today's show will be, or this particular video is when slave owners got reparations. Again, this is the most hated show on the black corner of the internet. And again, I'm your host, Mr. Blows Your Mind. And this channel is to report, articulate, transmit, transcribe, inspire, incite for the better. Whether it's by news, video, websites, or quotes from publications. As I, your whiteologist, disseminate this information, I ask that the creator of the universe be here, heart, soul, mind, and spirit. Because why? The truth don't need no partner. As a descendant of the greatest people which created this land that you call the United States, we, the BADOS, those say Black American descendant of slaves. Some say Black African descendant of slaves. Others say American descendant of slaves. We, as the ancestor historical of this transplant of the bloodline lineage, we give honor to our ancestors. And you know what my motto on this show is? I'm never going to tell you what I heard. I'm only going to tell you what I know. This is Black MINDZ News. Again, today's day, July 17, 2019. And stay tuned for this program's topic. Alright, hey, how's y'all doing, everybody? Again, this is your host, Mr. Blows Your Minds, coming with another topic for today. Again, first and foremost, before we get into that, first I want to say what's good to the fam in the house that should be subscribers. Welcome to the most hated show, as you already know this. What's good, fam? And those who are sending out their nice, comments. I want to say thank you for that, for your participation and having some things that may touch you in a way that may make you converse and say things. I want to thank you first and foremost as my subscribers. Passerbys, again, if you should be, sea diving, hit the bottom of the ocean, go into a cavern of a hole that takes you up and you start yodeling and get up on top of a mountain, fall back down on another height while you're trying to eat some goat cheese and fell into this show here, because this is the most hated show on the black corner internet. It is the most hidden, stuck, and tucked up under the corner, but this show fights to do what it do. It's not about numbers to me. Just gonna do what I gotta do, right? And so, welcome to the most hated show on the corner. If you should see something that just, again, go in the library, search around. It's always a grand opening over here. You go on down the aisle, see something you like. You may see something you may not like. Maybe it ruffled you in the wrong way, but don't give up on it, because the truth don't need no partner. All you do is come back, suck it up again, and let's try it again. And if you got some questions, some things, send them questions in to me. If you got something you want to combat or something I said, send the article that rebuts what's being said. It's EEOC over here. We all can get it. Now, let's get into the show. All right, so we got the topic of reparations again. It's kind of a known thing, but it's a hit thing. And again, you're seeing everybody doing everything to really not have to address it, right? And it's, people, again, they're saying it's very divisive to talk about reparations because certain people don't believe you should get nothing. Some people think, well, fighting in the war has already paid that, and that there's been other ways that have been compensated, and you could be somewhere still swinging on a tree on a vine, eating a banana, riding on the back of a rhinoceros in Africa if it wasn't for us. They think like that, right? So I just say, well, let me show this for some people out here who may not even knew about that, right? Man, you never even heard that, right? Fact that, that the ancestors, right, had, been paid. Now, did that go for all ancestors? That's the issue here. Was it for all ancestors? I don't know if it was for all ancestors, right? I know, according to they wasn't for all ancestors, but they try to act as if this one particular aspect is the all-be-all cover to it all, right? They say, well, this is how it was done, and it never had been done nowhere else, and this is the way it is, and take it for what it is. All right, fine, if that's what you want to say, right? So let me go ahead and get into it. I ain't going to talk about it no more. Let's get into it. And let's see. Let me go ahead and do it to you like that. Let me show you the article of it, right? Let me show you the article. Let me go ahead and show you the article. See that article right there, right? You see the article right there. It says right in front of your face, when slave owners got reparations, right? When slave owners got reparations. So let me go ahead and tell you what this article was talking about. So let me go ahead and do this, and let's get into it. Check it out. All right, now this story is going to be talking about when slave owners got reparations, right? So what we have to look is that there's a period in time in history where the United States has recognized that it gave reparations. Now, according to this article and the historical part to it, was this setting the precedence where we are today is in 2019? So let's look at this, right? So again, it was talking about how Lincoln signed a bill in 1862 that paid up to $300 for every enslaved person freed. Let me say that again. Lincoln signed a bill in 1862 that paid up to $300 for every enslaved person freed. Now, let's look at this. So it talks about around April 16, 1862, that President Abraham Lincoln had signed an emancipating enslaved people in Washington. Now keep that in mind. In Washington, right? And but to ease the slave owners' pain, the District of Columbia Emancipation Act paid those loyal to the Union up to $300 for every enslaved person that was freed. Now again, District of Columbia Emancipation Act, right? So think about that. That is actually saying that, let's put it this way. This is designated only for this particular region because, again, once you understand what Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia, and what it is affiliated to and what it is really the branch of, it is distinguished from the rest, as everybody says, the nation's capital. But there's some other stuff that goes along with that as well. And we may get that out in this dissertation. And so what we see is that slave owners got reparation for enslaved African Americans who got nothing for generations of their stolen bodies, snatched children, expropriated labor, other than their mere release from legal bondage. That's all that ADOS, American Descendant of Slaves, or BADOS, Black American Descendant of Slaves of Washington at this particular time, and we're talking about 1862, which is a year before the so-called emancipation that is going to blanket. And again, that's another thing too. Look how many different emancipations are being set by Lincoln. If you have emancipation that is going to emancipate those in Washington, D.C., and the slave owners are going to get $300 for every person that is freed, then later, a year later or so, about a year later, right, you're going to emancipate again, but again, that emancipation did not cover the entire United States. This is why you have to be a person who, you know, again, kind of like an attorney and lawyers, again, you have to have them to represent you in court because, again, understanding the law, they understand the letters to the law and how each word specifies something entirely from your common understanding. And so what we see is that the emancipation that ended up happening the year later is the emancipation only for the rebel states. So let me say that again. Only those of the rebel states were emancipated. See, here's emancipation in Washington, D.C., and that was the only emancipation for those of the rebel states, right? And so we have to look at it that this emancipation that was written up, right, was not written by Lincoln himself, right? He didn't write that. Somebody else wrote that, right? And I may talk about that later on. But accordingly, they end up writing up. It was called Compensated Emancipation Act, right? And this is how they was going to take it legislatively and take it, you know, and to get it, you know, kind of. I don't want to talk about that, but anyway. So we see that about 1849. Lincoln, as a representative, he had introduced a plan to eliminate slavery in Washington, D.C., but they said the bill failed. Now I'm trying to figure out, wait a minute, 1849. Now again, he's, you know, coming out of the state of Illinois, right? And he's coming to Washington to lay out about eliminating the slavery in Washington, D.C. Now, why is he doing that already? Wait a minute. Right? So he has some pre-knowledge about something prior to him even becoming president, right? That he's already talking about reparations for Negroes. Now, again, depending on who you're watching on the internet, some people may say that Lincoln was black. And I've seen some pictures that somebody has shown, and again, maybe, you know, I don't know whether it's that a Photoshop picture or not, but it is, there's a photo that shows Lincoln as a black man. Right? And then, you know, they also had a lot of reference in history as to saying that, you know, Lincoln was more Negro. And then some people say that, again, you know, the reason why the penny is dark, because I always made reference to him as being Negro. So maybe he may have had some Negro running in his blood, right? But some odd reason, in 1849, he decided that he was trying to introduce a plan to eliminate slavery in Washington, D.C., but that bill had failed, right? Now, the individual who ended up writing, and again, I was going to say, but I want to say that first, was an individual named Thomas Marshall Key. And Henry Wilson, those were the ones who originally had, Thomas Keyes was the one who wrote it up. And I think it was Henry and Wilson and him who they together introduced it, right? Now, the thing was, they had a specified amount of people that would be freed just from this act alone in Washington, D.C. Now, according to them, they said that there was about 3,185 people that was free from Washington, D.C., right? And so what they did is they had a allotment of $1 million was put aside for, you would think, for the slaves, But that's not who they put the money aside for. They put the $1 million aside for slave owners. Because again, they're going to pay up to, they say up to, $300 per freed slave. But the consolation prize to the slaves was that they were going to give $100,000 set aside. Now check this out. They took $100,000 and set it aside for the 3,185 slaves that would be free from Washington, D.C. And they had an opportunity to get $100 for the inconvenience of slavery. And, at this particular time, we'll say, if we're going to take the count of 1619 to 1862, right? So we're going to say of your 200 and let's say 43 years, right? 243 years from 1619 to the time of 1862, we're going to give you $100. Now again, $100 at 1862 is not going to be the same equivalent to today's $100, right? That $100 could be a lot more, it could buy a lot more, but here was the undermine to, I'm going to give you $100, but it ain't like you're going to be able to sit here and spend it. We're going to give you this $100, but we're going to give you a choice. You can go to Haiti or you can go to Liberia, right? You can go to Haiti or you can go to Liberia if you take the $100, right? And so they also talk about, people in this article as to, there were people who were saying that why would you pay slave owners when you could be actually giving the money to the people who most deserve or who gonna need it. So there was an individual named William Lloyd Garrison, and I think it was in 1833 in Philadelphia, they had a national anti-slavery convention. And in that convention, it is noted that William Lloyd Garrison quoted as saying that it should be given, meaning the money, to the outraged and guiltless slaves and not to those who have plundered and abused them. Let me say that again. William Lloyd Garrison of the 1833 Philadelphia National Anti-Slavery Convention was quoted saying it should be given to the outraged and guiltless slaves and not to those who have plundered and abused them. Now, it just seemed logical that the people who, again, that you now have deemed that what we did, and really it's not even about that, is it? Really, is it really that the nation is looking at what had been done to Black American descendant of slaves or African American descendant of slaves, right, or American descendant of slaves? Has the nation really said what we did was wrong, right? People say there had been a national apology, but apology in the case of what has been done and has continued to be done, right? Just saying sorry sometimes is not going to be enough. Let's say, for instance, you're in a relationship and some things have been said. And you said some things, you know how it is. When we get angry, sometimes we say things we don't mean. That's why when you get in those situations, it's best not to say anything. And you know how it is. You said some things that have been bothering you. You never want to say it because you've been suppressing it. And you say it. But you weren't really trying to say it to hurt, but you said it anyway. Right? And depending on the individual, not everybody is built to take your shit thrown at them and carry it, right? Because you could have hurt them and cut them deep. So sometimes an apology, there needs to be more to it. You can't just say, I'm sorry, and then just say, okay, it's over with. People can accept your apology, but that doesn't mean that the wound is still, slow at healing, right? Still is deep. And again, they say, I can forgive you, but do I forget what you have done? And so what we see is that the nation, again, has never done that because, again, they looked at it from the standpoint, and this is how white folks look at it, that it was legal. As long as the law says right, it can't be wrong. Again, morally versus legally, in the eyes of, you know, somebody who's trying to justify what took place, they're saying, well, lawfully, there was no crime done. This is just what it was. But does that make that right? Just because, again, people want to believe just because something is lawfully, maybe deemed legally, that it means it's right. Well, let's just say at one particular time in history when Prohibition had alcohol. Is alcohol now legal due to now the taxation that comes from it? Right? Look at marijuana. People have been locked up and done time when it was considered illegal. But as time go on in this land, it will be legal. And this is why you hear a lot of them talk about now, you know, either allowing them to be exonerated for their crimes of marijuana, and also, you know, to expunge those records for marijuana crimes, because now that it's become legal. So again, something could be illegal at one time and now be legal this time, and be legal this time and be illegal. Now, I don't know if I've seen that one yet. Legal and then something now illegal. So once it's illegal and become legal, I guess it never goes back to illegal, right? But so with that being said, the kickstand that people will hold is the fact that slavery was legal. And so the only ramification is the fact that it was, you know, it might be morally. Now, again, people who don't really uphold those kind of standards will never look at it from that standpoint, again, because they know some things that you don't know when it comes to history. Matter of fact, when you look at that moral aspect, it was really, you know, Black Americans who had convened, because it was a question about, again, when we talk about letting go the slave, it seemed to have been preachers who were saying that if we could get the black men to be right and keep them on the path and then keep them morally right, they became this moral. This is where this moral is being introduced into this land as a way to, you know, make white people feel comfortable with black people being in the nation, is that black folks is going to focus on being morally people. See, again, as I said, this old saying is, I done you wrong, I hate you more, because you know that the fact that I've done you wrong. So unconsciously thinking that if we let these people go, if I was in that position, as you hear Malcolm says in my intro or the end of the show, that the guilt that people hold due to something what you know you've done to people. And so you believe that they're going to come and lash out at you due to the simple fact that you know what you've done to them. But as you heard William Lloyd Garrison said, the guiltless black folks, right? They're guiltless. And so, you know, so the standpoint that slaves and being compensated for the wrongdoings and the generations of people who had endured. See, think about this. People try to make it seem as if like just when you talk about like one ancestor, right? Like I said, well, just my grandparents were slaves. See, that's how they try to do this mind trick with you. They're not trying to let you understand that it's going from generation to generation to generation. And accordingly, a generation can be 40 years, a generation can be 30 years, and a generation can be 25 years. It just depending on who decides what is the marker. So if we're talking about generations, we're talking about durations of 40 years per next generation. Could be 30 years, it could be 25. Right? And so, you know, that becomes a lot of people affected by the continuation of this ill practice, immoral practice. And again, I guess in war, there's no such thing as, morals, when you have to look at the simple fact that it's all part of war, right? Now, again, when you take something from illegal status to legal status, you open the door for those who've been affected by it to now admit, because again, isn't that what happened? Didn't somehow the nation end up acknowledging the fact that what it had done was wrong? Even though you will not compensate, but didn't the nation recognize that what we did was wrong? Or were you forced? Because again, let's look at then England or Britain, didn't they abolish slavery first? And wasn't this kind of one of their plans to do this, to undermine, to destroy your business? Because again, historically, when you look at it, how did this nation, that a lot of people still haven't figured out, how did the United States become a nation if it wasn't already a nation? And if it was another nation, what nation was it? Because you already had France. You already had, Britain. You already had, let's say those nations in the Middle East and so forth, right? These nations already existed, Spain and so forth, right? So what nation was able to come here and create a nation that was something separate from those other nations? It was the merchants. Come on, man. It's the merchants. So this is about money. This is why this is the greatest nation on, they say, the planet Earth, maybe next to Russia, because they was also merchants too, right? But my thing is, I'm saying is, there was always money. There was the foundation of how this whole ordeal began, with people who had money versus those, again, they may have the power to allow them to set shop with charters, right? But they were allocating their money to them when they got to the point that you owe me so much that now you can't recoup this money because you can't pay because you ain't got no money. Your money only coming from the taxation of the citizens, when our money is coming from the markets that we create through trade, and all that other good stuff. So we have to look at the fact that the nation had agreed that this was wrong. But even though that William Lloyd Garrison had said what he said in 1833 is the Philadelphia Anti-Slavery Convention, and again he said that it should be given, meaning the money, to the outraged and the guiltless slaves, and not to those who had plundered and abused them. But here it was that Lincoln didn't agree with that, right? He didn't agree. This is the great emancipator. This is the one that's emancipating, that's freeing slaves. But when it came to trying to give them some reparations, and remember, who was the one that said that he himself emulates that? Who was that? Obama. Barack Obama said, the great emancipator, and he taking the page out of him and doing what he did. Well, he guess he's sticking it to every letter, ain't he? Right? Because Lincoln didn't agree with slaves getting money as well. He believed that any manumission plan had to placate property rights that were buttressed by the Fifth Amendment, what he called about just compensation for government service of private asset. Now, that's something we got to look at, right? We got to look at that because there's something in that, right? There's something in that where there was a transfer being made as into the ownership of one, giving compensation to the other, and then who became the rightful owner of the property of these newly, as they say, manumission is the same thing as being freed individuals, our ancestors, right? And so, think about it. They talk about the Fifth Amendment, right? And a lot of times you hear about the Fifth Amendment about, crimes, right? Having, can't have your property taken for public, right? They say you can't have your assets taken. You have to have a fair trial. Can't just be taken. It has to go through due process, and the fact that they can't just take it without just compensation. So if I'm going to take this from you, if I take and seizure your assets, I have to give you just compensation. So So is that what happened here? Is that what happened with our ancestors? Is that the price is paid by paying off these slave owners in exchange for the freedom of our ancestors? And if that be so, that who paid for it, he became now the new owner of you and I, right? And so we see that Lincoln appointed a board of commissioners to oversee the process of compensation, right? Kind of like an HR 40 you hear them talking about now, right? What they're talking about, they're getting the commission together, and they're going to study and try to determine through these experts that they're going to use. And we've seen some people say the dog and pony commission that had been laid before us with Tallahassee Coates, and he too old for this, Danny Glover, you know. All right, now this story is going to be talking about when slave owners got reparations, right? So what we have to look is that there's a period in time in history right? And then he was using a news reporter. So you know how some people looked at that process and was looking like, well, you got actors, football players, you got a writer, you got two writers up in here. What, they were just following script, y'all. This is what had been done here, right? And so what that commission did is they reviewed about 1,000 slave owners, or slave holders, as they would say, who had petitioned, right? They petitioned him because, again, they said they were going to get money. You understand? Oh, he was okay. Well, instead of me losing everything, again, you willing to give me some money for it? So, okay, so check this out. So if they going to have 1,000, petitions for slaveholders to try to get some of this money, then there's records, because, again, you had to produce records in order to get that money. Now, those who might be coming out of Washington, D.C., who part of the ADOS, they have records of your ancestors there. If you're part of the 3,185, as they say, that's what they say, it was only 3,185, and that, they said the largest payment that was paid out was about one particular slaveholder or slave owner who had about 69 slaves. Now, according to them, they said $18,000, but if you do 300 times 69, you don't get $18,000, you get $20,700. And so maybe a couple of them, he didn't get full amount of the 300, but damn near for all of them, right? And so, you see that they set that up to show that there was, at a time, they were paying. But again, you got to look at the fact that is just Washington. right? That's just Washington. And so you see that compensation that they're talking about. People celebrate that today as like it was, you know, blanketed across the nation. Now that one was specific, right? That one said Washington, and it said also it's called it the Washington District Emancipation Act and so forth, right? But you have other, you know, parts of history from different states where these states were being compensated, you know, had little clauses where they could get money from the state, which would be federal funding, if slaves ran away, if slaves rebelled, if slaves, in the case of the fact that they went and fought for the other side, right? They could petition and would be paid for their loss. So are they trying to make it seem as if like, well, the only time that it had been taken was the Lincoln, but no, there's other stories that show they had done this in other states. And so it goes on and talks about let me get here. Okay, I got that part. Okay, so it says slave owners felt entitled and often received compensation from local, colonial, and state legislators, especially in times of crisis. As I was just showing or saying to you, right? You know, if they said enslaved women, men ran away, participated in rebellions, or were executed from crimes. During American Revolutions, owners, they say, asked to be compensated when bonds people had died. So they was getting money when they would die, right? When those who were working in the mines of Virginia, for example, or those who sided with British and ran away, they were compensated for that. So why try to hold the fact about what Lincoln did in Washington, D.C., when you have other examples of other parts of states doing the same thing? So compensating the slave owner seemed to be like that was just part of the natural business, right? And so what you end up having is that it also carried all the way up into the northern states because they were doing a gradual emancipation plan, right? The compensation was attracted to slave owners because it eased their financial burden. They may have had slaves, but they may not have been doing well. And here was a way for them to now, you know, exchange, a trade-in, right? I could use the money and do something better because my business has really sucked, but I still got slaves, so let me go ahead and do this trade-in, right? So they had the 1804 Gradual Abolition Act in New Jersey, now, right? In 1804. Now this is about what, almost 60 years. Let's say 58 to be exact. 58 years before what you do in 1862 in Washington, D.C. Right? And again, they had some stipulations in it because, again, it didn't allow children of enslaved women to be treated as, well, it allowed them to be treated as that show that Donald Trump had called what? The Apprentice, right? Because apprentice is slavery by another name, according to them. And until they reach a certain age, then they would be free. Now, apprentice, again, is kind of like, again, what it say, indentured servants, right? Indentured servants also would be somebody who would work up to 7 years, right? They go from journeyman to apprentice to master, right? And then they have a severance package, suits. They got a certain amount of money, and they got acreage of land for all their family and serving all that they got. So here again, you owe. You use the term you owe according to the game that you play, right? And it also talks about the law included the clause that allows slave owners to gain compensation by letting their bonds people go free, then reclaiming them as bound out labor. So here it is. This was a trick in the game. You know, he spoke with a spoke tongue. He speaketh with a forked tongue. He ain't straight. As the words say, that a lie from the beginning, right? So here was, again, you know, I always use the word grandiose idea that I'm going to let you go. Then I'm going to go and claim to get money for you and say that I let you out as bond out labor. And they would pay them. Again, I'm white, I'm right. I didn't have to prove anything. I just said it and you was compensated for it, right? And again, this is state funds for their troubles. Ain't that a bit? For their troubles. So now we're talking about federal in one part. Now we're talking about state in another. So both have been doing it. Now that's New Jersey, right? So it was like a break in the tradition in 1850. An abolitionist named Elihu Burritt, he organized the National Compensate Emancipation Convention in Cleveland. Now, he was advocating payments to slave owners as well as smaller sums to be paid to the people they enslaved. Now, here was this individual, this Elihu, right? Elihu Burritt. He also had in mind that he felt like, well, you know, why don't we pay the slaves, right? But nothing came to his dual proposal, right? He was thinking about paying both, right? Right? All right, you used to own them, you paid for them, so we're going to compensate you and you for what you haven't done, and when we have the atrocity, like we're going to pay you. Wouldn't that have been the right thing to do? But no, you know what they did? They didn't even, they said, fuck that, we're not fucking with that. No, we're not fucking with that. And so the major benefactors of slave owners for reparation within the Atlantic slave system were Europeans. Are we surprised? Right? Are we surprised about that? We shouldn't be surprised about that. And so when you look at England and when it abolished slavery in the Caribbean colonies, did you know that it offered 46,000 slave owners at the cost of about $26.2 million? Let me say that again. Because, you know, you be having people who come from the Caribbeans, and then when they start hearing ADOS talking about trying to get its money, here's the history that for some of them to act like they didn't know. That when England had abolished slavery in its Caribbean colonies, it offered the compensation to 46,000 slave owners at the cost of about $26.2 million. So in the Caribbeans, the slave owners had been paid. That's your part the same way you can be using as well. You paid the slave owners, but you're going to have to find in the history there that they had been, you know what I'm saying, compensating otherwise. But you got that right there. So that right there gives you, you know, evidence, as they would say, right, in a proceeding. Now, check this crazy stuff out. Now, everybody know about Haiti and France, right? You know the story about how Haiti ended up kicking out the French, right? And so, you know, to be recognized, you know what Haiti had to do? Look at the stipulation that France put on them. Now, again, they took Haiti. Now, it used to be one land. But due to the fact that there was a line drawn in the sand by the French, the side over here is going to be Haiti, and this side over here is going to be San Dominguez, right? As they today, you know, you have people who say they, you know, I'm not Haiti, I'm what they call Dominican, right? The Dominicans, right? The Dominicans ain't Haitians, but they all once upon a time were one damn people, right? But again, you know how he bring confusion in and got people all like that. So what happens is because of the line drawn that created, you know, Dominican Republic, and that used to be the land that was of the French, and because of what they lost, you know what the French did to Haiti? The former slaves were forced to pay indemnity, is what they call it, right? To former slave owners in exchange for official recognition as the first black independent nation state in the Western Hemisphere. So in order to be recognized by white folks, Haiti had to do what? it had to give up a lot of its natural resource. And you know, I barely say that Haiti is the most poorest country in the world, and this is, well, the history tells you what happened to them. And it was ironic that, from my research and what I understand, that right before that earthquake, the one that rocked them and tore them up severely, again, some people will say that might have been HARP, but they was on their last payment, right? It was on their last payment, and what ended up happening? The country got devastated. So now that you're going to need other people to come in there and throw checks at you, and they're going to throw these, you know, these numbers and figures about their help, now you back in debt again, right? And so, again, I even heard, I forgot that preacher name, and talking about they sold a pack to the devil. Pat Roberts, I think his name is, right? That it was a pack to the devil that they sold, and that's why they keep having these forbidden atrocities that keep happening to them. And so, you know, it's just the fact that when you look at this, right, and it's not an easy subject for a lot of people, because a lot of people just don't want to see people who are deemed historically and how they see today looking at you as what that was historically. To see you come up is a letdown for them, who some of them have the complexion for the protection, but they don't get all the royal benefits. They don't come out of certain families. And so again, there's an old saying, I'd rather be a nigger than a poor white man. So this is what is really the buffer in this nation, when it has its pot liquor of its nation in a downtrodden, you know, dog eat dog, scrapping life, but yet wear the uniform of the winning team. And so, you know, if it's the first responders to crisis due to the simple fact that we're going to say we're not talking about war, we're just talking about economically, and a lower people who in the eyes have been deemed and entrenched in the minds that these are lower and they're coming up, then they can only do nothing but cause these people to become angry due to the simple fact that they don't want to be labeled again, as I said, the old saying is. As much as you may think they don't think that, they do, right? And so this is the day and age we in. Next month will make it the 400 according to their count, right? From 1619. A lot of us know this a lot. Oh, we've been here a lot longer than that, because again, 1619 is just the starting point of the Virginia Company, right? You got the Hudson Bay and the Virginia Company, right? These are the ones coming to establish from their charters, setting up shop here. But there are people already here. France was already here. Spanish was already here. A lot of other nations, the Jews were already here, right? It was already in Manhattan and all that stuff, right? So, you know what I'm saying? So people had already been here prior, but they're going to talk about what their starting point is. And so that's just to give you something to show you that, again, as much as they want to say that they never really had dealt with this situation, you dealt with it. You just dealt with it in the wrong way. You dealt with the slave owners and never dealt with the people who were, who were the recipients of the wrong part of history, right? And somebody said, well, yeah, I was crying about it. No. But the thing is, we sit here under that. And so we just saying that if you're going to be right, then you have to look at it from the way it needs to be looked at and do what's right. Again, all right, so we're going to end that conclusion with that article there, when the slave owners got reparations. And again, this is the most hated show on the Black Corner Internet, and brought that to you to give you some insight to that article. You can see if you want to go read it for yourself, as I took out a lot of the meat out of it and just, transcribed it for you. So again, thank you for your watch, and see you at the next one. Stay black, peace, and all that good stuff. Until the next show, y'all, I got to keep pumping them, right? They got to do the one hit singles until we get it right. Right? So until then, peace, love, and all that.
Portions of the following program may be unsuitable for younger or more sensitive viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
Remember, the enemy has only images and illusions, behind which he hides his true motives. Destroy the image, and you will break the enemy.
I'm here to tell you tonight that the businessmen, the mayor of this city, the police commissioner of this city, and everybody in the white power structure of this city must take a responsibility for everything.
Can you feel it? Can you feel it?
Luther and I, and everyone in this arena tonight, are unified by the same great American values. We're proud of our country. We respect our flag. Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
Race is when you use your power and influence to subject people into inferiority. Utterances can't be racist.
Look around you, man. They own this shit. They own this couch you sitting on, them shoes you got on your feet, this building, this school, this country, you. We're behind enemy lines, dog.
So you must first of all remember that this system was not originally designed with black people in mind. Right on, and it definitely was not prepared for black people to, in the end, begin to demand their rights and an equal share in this country which they've died for. Right on. Hey, and we definitely are not going back to Africa.
In the church, we used to sing the song, "Good news, the chariot is coming." While you sit here today, knowing that you have come to hear good news, you must realize in advance what good news for you might be bad news for somebody else. What good news for the sheep might be bad news to the world.
They say, oh, things are getting so much better for you. In 1849, it was hitting blacks on the head 100 times a day. In 1990, they hit them 48 times a day. Isn't it better? Oh, it's got to be better. You're saved 52 blows.
The only purpose of most black Americans on earth today is to destroy.
I think that's noble. Italians love Italians. When Irish love Irish, but when a nigga loves a nigga, it's an unpardonable sin. They have blood in their hands. When we say they have blood in their hands, we are not saying him, George Bezos, went and killed. But white people colonized us. They dispersed us. They enslaved our people. They sucked our economy dry. They are still sucking it dry even today. That's white people. Tony Blair, George Bush, Napoleon Bonaparte, Leopold, Adolf Hitler, Benjamin Netanyahu. All white people, they are the same. They are racist and they are full of hate.
I've been waiting for you. You have many questions, and though the process has altered your consciousness, you remain irrevocably human. Ergo, some of my answers you will understand, and some of them you will not. Concordantly, while your first question may be the most pertinent, you may or may not realize it is also the most irrelevant.
Why am I here?
Our world is coming crumbling down. The coons are coming.
You got to understand that white America has an uncanny way of making the victim the victimizer. Excuse me, master, for putting my head in the way of your club. Not that your club is brutalizing my head and putting hickeys on it. My head got in the way of your free swing and broke your shiny stick, and I want to apologize for that.
Your life is the sum of a remainder of an unbalanced equation inherent to the programming of the Matrix. You are the eventuality of an anomaly which, despite my sincerest efforts, I have been unable to eliminate from what is otherwise a harmony. of mathematical precision. While it remains a burden assiduously avoided, it is not unexpected and thus not beyond a measure of control, which has led you inexorably here.
There are more connections in the human body than there are stars in the galaxy. We possess a gigantic network of information to which we have almost no access.
Matrix is older than you know. I prefer counting from the emergence of one integral anomaly to the emergence of the next, in which case this is the 6th version.
5 ones before me. 3, 4. There are only 2 possible explanations. There were 5 ones before me. Either no one told me, or no one knows.
Precisely. As you are undoubtedly gathering, the anomaly is systemic, creating fluctuations in even the most simplistic equations.
Can't control me! I'm gonna smash you to fucking kill you! You can't make me do anything like my friend!
Choice. The problem is choice.
Let us remember that we are not brutalized because we're Baptist. We're not brutalized because we're Methodist. We're not brutalized because we're Muslim. We're not brutalized because we're Catholics. We're brutalized because we are black people in America.
Because white people made him to be what he is. They made him to look evil, because that's their role, to make all of us black people to look evil and to hate ourselves. I can't hate.
You're a nigga till you die. If you're a poor nigga, you're a poor nigga. If you're a rich nigga, you're a rich nigga. But you never stop being a nigga, and if you get to be educated, you're just an educated nigga.
Well, I'm told every day I'm on air that I'm racist because I call out racism. That is maddening to me, and I'm crying about it because it's crazy.
So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is teaching you and I and trying to tell the white man to get this powder keg out of his house. Let the black man separate from his house. Let the black man have his own house. Let the black man have his own land and his own property.
I thought the bitch was white! Damn it! I thought the bitch was white!
That's true. I think that white people are so guilty, knowing what they've done to black people, that they feel if the deeds were reversed, they would hate the black man if he had done the same thing to them. So it's actually, it reflects a guilt complex on the part of whites when they ask us, do we hate them? And if you notice, Uncle Sam has formed a habit of going all over the world. He calls it the ugly American, or the American image. He thinks that everybody hates him because it's a guilt complex. And if you think that if you are worried about Europeans hating you, and they're your allies and your cousins, well, naturally it would follow for you to think that Negroes in this country would hate you, especially in light of what has been done to black people in this country by white people.
Now, check it out. The white ball dominates everything, right? Knocks the shit out the yellow ball, the red ball, right? And the game's over when the white ball drives the black ball completely off the table.
But you have to see that all of this is hypocrisy.
I love Malcolm. Malcolm called me the Sunday that he died. I was working Basin Street East. He said, Brother Greg, you coming by today? And I said, Malcolm, I love you. And I said, I love you so much, I don't even want to take a chance to be there. He said, what do you mean, Brother Greg? I said, well, I close tonight, Sunday night at Basin Street East. And I said, but I had my wife book me a flight into Chicago at 8 o'clock this morning. And I'm going to Chicago, and I had way beneath my salary, booked me into a college about 10 miles from the airport. And I'm going to go there and speak this afternoon, and I'm going to stay there until they tell me you dead. Because I'm not going to let this government get 2 of us for the price of 1. And I'm going to call Adam Clayton Powell when I finish talking to you and beg him not to come there. Because today, the United States government is going to get you.